Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Part of our new strategy calls for integration of diplomatic and economic assets into our military effort. That sounds a little bit like provincial reconstruction teams that we did in Iraq for a while. Is that part of the goal in any way whatsoever? And I'll just elaborate on that a little bit. In Iraq, when we tried to bring over more of the Iraqi people to our side versus the terrorist side or the Hussein side, we created provincial reconstruction teams that used our military folks. In fact, in Gazaria, I was there with them personally when they did that, to make microloans and things like that to help build the local businesses and their investment in them, as well as other participation like that with the State Department. Is anything like that being contemplated in Afghanistan?
I think the idea of integrating our approaches is to try to achieve that same synergy of economic assistance and other support along with the military campaign. So although it's structured somewhat differently in terms of the campaign, the best practices, lessons learned, I think it can still be applied when we ensure we're knitted up as two departments in our overall efforts.
Senator Shriver, you made a very interesting comment in your verbal statement. I didn't read your prepared statement, so it may be in there as well. But you said we were moving from measurement of accomplishment and not time. Is that correct, when we measure our success?
Yes, sir, conditions-based.
Yeah, that said to me a world of good, because when you use time, you say, well, we're going to stay there till X time, and then we're gone. And we dealt with that in the last administration for a long time. We kind of protracted our investment in the country. Now, by measuring accomplishment, we can actually see what we're doing to accomplish the ultimate goal, which is independence, regional cooperation, and hopefully a lessening dependence on terrorism and the Taliban and people like that. Mr. Sullivan, is the Afghan Compact one of those benchmark measurements we're going to use to measure our accomplishments in Afghanistan?
Yes, it is, Senator. In fact, as Senator Young mentioned, it's got a number of, within it, the compact has a number of measurements, benchmark measurements for corruption, economic development, et cetera, that we will use to measure the progress of the Afghan government.
What do you see as the consequences for not reaching those benchmarks for the players involved?
Well, ultimately, for the players involved, for the Afghan government, it's the success of their effort to govern the country, to govern effectively, to have a democracy in Afghanistan, to eliminate corruption, to promote the rule of law, to develop the economy. It's in the Afghan self-interest to meet those benchmarks, and they themselves have adopted those benchmarks and advocate for them.
This Thursday at Fort Benning, we're standing up a group, and I understand General Mattis is going to be there. I heard he just made that announcement today at the Armed Services Committee. A Security Forces Assistance Brigade at Fort Benning that will be going to Afghanistan, I think March the 1st. That's a significant commitment. My state of Georgia, with Fort Benning, with Robbins, with so many things, with Fort Stewart, with the investment we have in manpower and material going to Afghanistan, our success is a huge thing that's looked forward to the people in my state. What is this group that's going to go from Georgia come March 1st? What is it going to add to our effort in Afghanistan, and what are we going to look for them to achieve?
Our goal, Senator, is to integrate those brigades into the train, advise, and assist structure and the mission, which is to ultimately create a more lethal and effective Afghan security force, as well as provide some key capabilities that are gaps for the Afghan forces currently. But primarily, it's the train, advise, assist role that they will help with to improve the Afghan forces so ultimately they can operate more independently.
And I sense we're making a bigger effort for training of Afghan troops and Afghan resources in their own fighting for themselves. Is that correct?
That's a major focus, yes, sir.
At the Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, Georgia, we're trying to train the Afghan pilots now under a 3-year program of training, which is another investment we're making in training the Afghans to do for themselves what we in the past have been doing for them. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Air Force modernization is another key piece. It includes not only American equipment, but the training piece so that they can provide that key enabler to their operations.
Thank you both for what you're doing.